Welcome to Pack Personal. It's the mini-series of Personal where we get to meet the personalities behind Pack members. In this episode, I'm speaking to the lovely Shannon Robinson, who is one of our multimedia creatives and creative lead at Harvey and Hugo. So Shannon, let's get straight to it. You describe yourself as pansexual rather than bisexual. What's the difference?
Well, pansexual is someone who's attracted to people regardless of their gender identification or whatever pronouns they go by. So for me, I found bisexual to be a little bit too rigid because it's kind of just I'm attracted to men or I'm attracted to women. But for me, it kind of doesn't matter what pronouns people go by or what gender they identify as. And I just found pansexual to be a bit more fluid almost, and it was more like I started to realise as I got a bit older as well, I had attraction to people who identify as like non-binary. And that doesn't fit into the kind of binary, black and white, male, female kind of setting of someone who is bisexual. So yeah, when I learnt more about it, I realised that pansexuality was just like a better suit for me, and it kind of felt more natural than just men and just women.
Yeah, no, I really like that approach. And I remember one of our podcast guests, Ellie Lowther, saying that it was hearts, not parts, and that's really stuck with me. Again, I've got a friend as well. She was just like, it just doesn't matter the sexual orientation, the gender. It's for me if I fall in love with that person, and I just think that's so lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm definitely in the same boat. For me, it's more about my sexuality is almost I have to have a deeper connection with you. Of course, I need to be attracted to you.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, it's about the connection I make with that person, as opposed to I'm just interested in what parts they have or what their sexual organs are. It's more about the one-to-one connection, and that's what kind of makes me end up being attracted to someone.
Yeah, no, I really, I find it a lot more of an inclusive approach moving forward. Do you think more young people are kind of adopting that? You know, someone who would previously have said, right, I'm straight, or, you know, I'm gay. Do you think more people are just open to discovering things, not putting themselves in a box?
I like to think so. I think, well, I'm very lucky with the group of friends I have. But even when I talk to them about things like this, most of my friends are straight. But they are like me, and they see kind of sexuality as being something that's a lot more fluid than people used to think in the past. It was almost like you're either straight or you're gay, and even like bisexuality wasn't really a thing.
Yeah. Used to be called greedy when I was younger.
Yeah. Definitely. I've heard that one before as well. But yeah, it was kind of like, even my straight friends, I have this discussion with them, and they say, although I am straight and I can only imagine myself being with someone of the opposite sex, because I can still find people of the same gender as me attractive, therefore I am seeing how someone of the same gender can be seen as attractive, and I am therefore seeing them in some type of sexual way still.
Yeah.
So although that's not the type of person they want to end up in a relationship with, they can still see how that attraction is there, and it is a little bit more fluid, even if it's not the type of person you're going to end up with long term.
Yeah, I've always been able to admire the kind of the beauty or the attractiveness of the same sex, but just never anything sexual. Yeah. So I guess that's maybe the difference. But it's nice that I guess there's just no boundaries, there's less rules, and it kind of seems almost like a higher spiritual thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends on the person, of course, but I'm very much a person that I kind of pride myself on the connections I make in my life, and I think, as most people do, that's the most important thing you have, and richness doesn't come from money, it's the connections you have and the people that you have in your life. And when I kind of forge connections with people, it becomes like very intrinsic to who I am. It's like we're swapping parts of ourselves with each other, and it's not just you are someone I like and I like being around. It's actually we do in some way. There's like a transaction there almost of like from one to another. And there's this quote I really like, and I can't remember who it's by, but it says, "I'm a mosaic of everyone I've ever loved."
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
I love that. And it's like, no matter if people are still in your life or not, they have become part of you and you part of them. And even if you go separate ways at different points, they're still part of your story and still part of the person you've become today.
I really love that. That is beautiful, like a mosaic, and it's so true. And it's that vulnerability as well. You know, if you're speaking to someone honestly and genuinely, you are exposing yourself a little bit, and you kind of expect the same in the return. And I guess that's kind of how this podcast works as well. So it's really interesting. I like how you're such a deep thinker, because I often think the same. And when did you realise you were pansexual?
Oh, well, I don't know, because I've had so many different sexual identities throughout my life. I think, kind of like going back a bit, just to kind of give you the whole story. When I was younger, I think, as much as we're kind of trying to change things now, I think everyone is brought up to kind of feel like they should be straight, preferably, even though like being gay is fine, but preferably you should be straight as default.
Yeah.
And then if something else happens, then it happens. So growing up, I was just kind of telling myself I was straight. But I was probably in year 6, and it was before like my sexuality had even like properly developed, before I'd had a boyfriend or anything, or before I'd known what being attracted to someone even was. I remember I was in year 6 in primary school, and we had this assistant teacher who was a woman, and she was kind of very much the type of woman I'm attracted to now, where she was still feminine but kind of had a bit of a masculine energy about her. And I remember when I was younger just wanting to be around her all the time, and I didn't really know why that was, because I hadn't really had that before, and just really like talking to her and opening up to her, and just wanting to be around her. And it wasn't until I got older that I realised that was my first like crush, if you like, whatever you want to call it. So after that I still had like many years of thinking I was straight up until like secondary school, and I had like other friends who were coming out around me a little bit at the time, who I'm not really in contact with anymore, just because everyone goes the separate ways after school. But and I remember thinking, I think I'm interested in women, but I don't really know. So then I ended up in a relationship with a girl when I was at college. And that was like my first time having like a lesbian relationship. And that's when I was like, oh, I guess I'm bi now. And so it was like, I'm straight, now I'm bi. And then I was like, but I'm bi with a preference for being straight. I was like, my preference is for men still, because I felt that. Have you heard of like compet?
No.
It's where like you feel like you're kind of brought up feeling like you're meant to be straight, really. It's kind of what I said earlier. So it's like compulsory straightness, almost like compulsory heterosexuality. So feeling like I'm meant to be like that. So I can be interested in women, but that's just like a side thing I'm allowed to do, where really I'm predominantly straight. And then it wasn't until, I know like the whole transgender, non-binary discussion has been going on for a while, but it's mainly in recent years that it's become something that we're speaking about it as kind of publicly and openly as we should be. And it wasn't until like that discussion started being spoken about more that I realised actually there are non-binary people and there are transgender people and all these different gender identities that I do find attractive. And again, that doesn't fit into the bisexual category of just male and just female. And it wasn't until I kind of took the time to do my own research and think there must be other people who feel the same way as me, there must be a term for this. But it's just not something I'd thought to look into and research. So after a while I did my research and I found out it is a thing. And there are lots of other queer people who also identify as pansexual, and it just works better for me.
It must have just been quite a journey of self-discovery, because it's hard enough growing up, like navigating that, but then also navigating your sexuality. As a straight person, I've just taken for granted that I haven't ever had to worry about that. So how did you deal with that? It was complicated. I think there are, again, it's still seen as default that couples are meant to be straight, which is kind of something that was the biggest struggle, and the reason I brought it up so many times is because that was the main struggle. So obviously I've only been in one lesbian relationship and one gay relationship, so that's the only one I can kind of speak of. But when I was in that relationship, it was kind of, we'd go on nights out, and you'd get the typical like drunk men in the smoking area where they like try and chat you up, and then you say, no, actually this isn't my friend, this is my girlfriend, and they'd be like, prove it, and all that type of stuff. And that, like, it was very much with
obviously not all young men, but a lot of young men, especially in the drinking scene.
Yeah.
It was very much, you could see how they wanted to like sexualize and fetishize these like lesbian relationships as their own form of like sexual gratification, which was really disgusting. And you'd get the things like, oh, you're too pretty to be gay, and like all this type of stuff, and which was like really gross. And even when you went on holiday, you don't realise how there's other countries still, you forget that aren't as accepting as ours is. Like, we went on holiday to Italy before and Greece, and you kind of felt like you had to pretend to be straight a little bit. We'd kind of almost tell them in the booking form that we want a double bed in our room, but because it's two women, they'd give you like single beds, and they'd be like 6 feet apart. So we'd have to like
think about this.
Push them together ourselves, or ask for a new room. Sometimes they wouldn't give us a new room. So we'd just like push the beds together. And it's stuff that you do take for granted. And it wasn't until I had my first lesbian relationship that I realised actually there are things that are still happening that people might not realise are homophobic, but they are.
So ingrained in culture,
definitely.
People don't even realise it's homophobia. Yeah, oh, it's really interesting. And how was it coming out to friends when you realised, well, I guess bisexual at first?
Yeah.
Did you ever think, oh, I'm just a lesbian? Or was it definitely bisexual always?
No, I think, to be honest, if I've ever felt more like a lesbian, it's like now.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just starting to lean more towards that. Like, I can still see men and non-binary people and transgender people and find them attractive. I think it's mainly men that I'm getting put off on.
Understandable sometimes.
But yeah.
Sorry, Ryan.
But yeah, at the minute it's just I am starting to find women more attractive, and they're the gender of people I'm finding myself gravitating naturally towards more.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily my friendship group are very much like me, very liberal, very left-wing, very supportive of all that type of stuff. So coming out to them was kind of like easy. They were the first people to know, and actually I didn't feel the need to come out to them. That would be a little bit strange, wouldn't it? Just a little bit. But yeah, I didn't really feel the need to come out to them until I actually got with my girlfriend at the time. It was more just like, I have a girlfriend now, and we were just like, oh cool. Like, it wasn't even like something that we discussed. It was just, oh cool. Like,
oh, that's really
it's not something we need to talk about, because, and I like that, because if you get a boyfriend as a woman, you don't have to be like, oh, by the way, I'm seeing a boy.
Yes, I am now straight. I have got a boyfriend.
You don't have to have that whole conversation about it, which was really nice to kind of feel like it was just as normal as me getting a boyfriend. It was just, I'm seeing someone and there's nothing else that really needs to be said about it.
I'm hoping that is changing amongst kind of future generations, that coming out won't be a thing anymore, because it's just natural. You've just chosen to be with that person for their heart rather than their part.
Absolutely.
And I know that you've talked to me about how you really kind of strongly want to be a mother at some point in the future.
Yeah.
How would that work if you're in a relationship with a woman? Would you want to be the one that carries the baby, and would you want it to be your egg, or would you want their egg and donor sperm? I'm just curious, really, having gone through IVF myself, just wondering how it would happen for you.
Yeah, so I think it definitely is going to come down to the person that I end up being with at the time that I have children, whoever that may be. And it'll definitely be like an open discussion about what they want as well. But I'm always open to adoption, because I think that's like a wonderful thing, giving a child a home who doesn't have one, and it's something that I'd definitely be open to do. But I know for a fact I do want to be pregnant at some point. I want to have like the full experience at least once. So yeah, I know for a fact if I'm able to, I would love to carry. And whether that's my egg, their egg, I don't really mind. Again, it just comes down to how involved they want to feel with it, because I understand if there's some people who just don't feel the need at all to like carry, and they'll still feel it's just as much their baby as mine. But there are some people who do want to feel a bit more involved, which is also fine. So they might want it to be their egg, and then we get a sperm donor, and I just carry and grow the child myself and give birth to it. But yeah, I'm very open to all the ways. All I know for certain is that I really want to be a mum, and that is my absolute main goal in life. And I don't think I'll feel properly fulfilled until hopefully someday I'm lucky enough to become a mum.
Yeah, I mean, it was never like a really high priority for me until it suddenly became one.
Yeah.
But like having experienced motherhood, it's amazing. It definitely helps me feel fulfilled. Very busy, but it's yeah, and I understand like how lucky I am to have that privilege because it doesn't happen for everyone, whether they don't meet the right person in time or things just don't work out like it nearly didn't for us. So it is interesting. I think you were also telling me about techniques now where they can use both people's DNA
Yeah.
in the egg.
Don't quote me on this because I don't know. I don't know all of
You
the
are a
science.
top scientist, Shannon said.
But from what little I do know, I've heard it's not like widely released yet. I think they are still like testing it. But scientists have found a way where they can take an egg from each woman, keep one egg intact, take the nucleus out of the second egg, get a sperm, take the nucleus out of that sperm and take the nucleus from the second egg, put it into the sperm, and that sperm then fertilizes the egg. So both of the female nuclei, however you say it, are used in that process. So genetically, it will be both of their DNA, and the sperm just becomes a vessel to get that nucleus to attach to the other.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
Madness. I hope that can be achieved because some of my lesbian friends, they always just say that it's an absolute travesty that they can't mix their genetics. It seems very cruel and unfair.
Yeah, that was one thing that me and my ex at the time, like, I found it really, really heartbreaking to be like, no matter who I end up with, however much I love them and however much I feel like we go together, I might never know what half me, half that person looks like. And of course, like, through adoption and things like that, there's still like traits and mannerisms that they'll pick up from you, but you don't get to have that kind of genetic feeling of knowing just me and you have made this person would not exist without us two. And even knowing what your face would look like mixed with like the person that you love and all what qualities are they going to pick up from each of us. So that was something that I did kind of like grieve for a little while when I realised that I'm probably going to end up with a woman. Which I probably think I will at this point. But yeah, that was something that it took me a while to come to terms with that. But at the end of the day, there's so many ways to make a family. And lots of straight couples even struggle with that through infertility and things. So it's not just something that gay couples or queer couples have an issue with. It's a lot more common than people think. And it is really sad, but yeah, I
There's
think
worse things, I guess. I mean, again, that's easy for me to say as a straight person who took that for granted. Obviously, not the whole. I struggled with infertility, so yeah, totally respect that. But yeah, we just when I was pregnant, when I knew I was going to have the baby, it was lovely to notice how half of our features, well, it's not always even, is it? I'd like to think they've got a little bit more of me, but we will see. And thank you so much for talking so openly about that. I think it's something that I think we should speak more openly about. Because why should it be hidden?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and another thing you're really open about is your mental health. Why do you think it's so important again that we're so open about mental health?
I think it's because so many people well, we know for a fact it's more prevalent today than it ever has been. And although we openly talk about mental health more, we kind of talk about it in passing rather than people saying, I am actually struggling, I need help. It's more, we talk about the topic of mental health without actually being personal and asking for help when we need it. And there's so many people who are struggling in silence and still don't feel brave enough to come forward or don't feel like they're going to get the help they need or simply just don't feel like things are going to get better. And obviously we all know like where that can lead. And yeah, just particularly, I've spoke to you about this, but with my younger sister, at the end of last year, she, one of her very close friends took his own life, and that was heartbreaking. I didn't know the boy very well myself, but it was a very close friend of my sister. And I actually had driving lessons with the boy's dad, and I remember one morning he just said to me like, I can't come in today, we can't find my son. And it wasn't until a few days later that they found him, which was absolutely awful. And then being a very, very strong man. He came back to work after only 3 weeks and he was doing driving lessons with me again. And he would openly talk to me about his son and the memories he has of his son and how if only he knew that he was struggling. And it was just so... It was a privilege to feel like he was comfortable enough to talk to me in such a raw, authentic way. And although there was nothing I could say to ease his pain, it was nice knowing that if all he wanted to do was talk about him, at least I could be a vessel for that. And again, from my sister's side, seeing the way that broke her down, seeing her go through all the different stages of grief, like the guilt of going, what if I'd have spoke to him more? What if I'd have just messaged him that night? What if I'd have told him that I would listen to anything he says? And then going through the sadness, the depression, the denial, all the different stages, it was heartbreaking. And around the same time, around the same time, I was going through quite a hard time personally myself, and I kind of had quite a while where I thought, I'm not going to be here much longer. This is going down. I had this feeling like, I don't know when, but I don't really see a future for myself anymore. I'm going to start crying.
Oh, bless you, you're being so open.
And I felt like it was a strange feeling because I wasn't scared of it almost. It wasn't a scary feeling. It kind of felt quite freeing in a way, that's what was scarier about it, was the fact that if I was scared of it, then it's like, it's okay because I know that nothing's probably going to happen if it came to it. But the fact that I wasn't scared of it made it feel more real. And this sounds awful, but the only reason I'm still here is because, and I know this for a fact, is seeing my sister go through that at the same time. I was like, I cannot see her have to go through that again. And I can't be the cause of that type of pain for her. So I kind of had this moment of realisation where if I can't be here for myself right now, I'm going to be here for her. And then hopefully one day when things get a bit better, it'll be for myself again. It won't be doing it for someone else. And I think that's the one bit of advice I'd give to anyone who's in that position is, if you can't do it for yourself, pick someone or something you love and do it for them until you can do it for yourself again. Because at the end of the day, what's one more day? When you're already at that point, what's one more day?
Oh my goodness, Shannon, I'm speechless. I thank you for speaking so honestly about that. I wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't either, to be honest.
I remember Ian Kinnery, who talked in one of the earlier episodes, saying the very similar thing in terms of giving yourself more time, but linking it back to someone you love and how they're going to feel is a really powerful message. And you know that we work really closely with the Headlight partnership, so Headlight project. So thank you for sharing that with me. Can I just ask though, are you doing it for yourself now?
I think it's getting there, to be honest, definitely. I feel like I am getting better. It's been a slower process than I would have liked, but I do have things in place now that I needed. I started going to therapy. I started doing more mindfulness. I'm definitely more into my spirituality. And I've just kind of found ways of coping that help me, that are getting me back on the right track.
Oh my goodness, bless you. I don't think I've been to as dark a place as you have, but the one thing that I always seem to go back to in the moments is spirituality, where you question, the meaning of life and you go back to figuring it all out. Have you kind of got your head around that?
Yeah, I think... I don't know, my spirituality has been something that's really, really helped me. Just kind of, I still don't really know what my spirituality is, to be honest. It's very open. It's kind of, I don't shut anything out really. But for me, it's just been mindfulness, meditation, going on walks, all that type of stuff. But
just a quick message from our sponsor, Be Daily. If you'd like all the relevant business news that you need to know on a daily basis delivered directly to your inbox, please subscribe to Be Daily. So what do you think happens when we die?
oh, see, here's the thing.
I feel a deep answer for it, or maybe not.
No, it's I'm very undecided, and my mind changes all the time. But the only thing I say quite definitively is, I don't think there's just nothing. So obviously, as much as I'm spiritual, I still believe in science, and I know that obviously energy cannot be destroyed. It can just be transferred into something else. So our life force, the energy that's in us, keeping us alive, they call it chi energy. Some people call it the soul. When we die, that energy can't be destroyed. It has to go somewhere. And we don't know where that is, whether it's powering a distant star, whether it just grows the grass if you're buried or something. It has to go somewhere, but the second we die, that leaves us, so where does it go? It has to go somewhere. So although we might not be sentient, it might not be this sentient afterlife where we are living beings and things, my energy does still have to carry on once it's no longer in me. And my energy has been here before I was born. I'm just a borrower of it for a short time. So yeah, I believe in reincarnation in that way, because my energy is always going to come back. It's always going to be in something. It just may not be in a human form or in a living form.
No, that's a really interesting answer, and I certainly believe in all kind of forms of that. And there's just something about, we've got our 5 senses. I feel that we have very limited senses in terms of what's out there.
Yeah.
And it's something I don't know all the answers to. I'm just exploring ideas in my mind. And for me, again, that's what spirituality means to me. It's go back to questioning and that search for answers. And I love a mix. I love science as well. I always love science, but it's that mix of science and then questioning the unknown. And why don't we know it? Can there be a theory to explain it? And I just wonder why we haven't discovered it yet,
No, definitely. It's weird as well, because people, they kind of think you can't be both. Like, you either believe in science or you believe in religion or spirituality or faith. Why can't you have both? I think it's because I'm just a curious person. It's like, I just don't shut any doors. I'm open to all possibilities.
Yeah, me too. I guess it's like the whole sexuality thing that we started with. Some people think you're either this or that.
Yeah.
And you can't be a mix of everything. You can't be open-minded.
Yeah.
And I believe you can about a lot of things in life. To get that balanced opinion or to form an even stronger view of what you believe in, you've got to listen to all the different sides.
Definitely.
But it's really interesting. So a lot of people describe these sorts of things we're talking about, like woo-woo, like meditation. I know we went to a moon event recently, which I absolutely loved. Do you do anything else that's a bit woo-woo?
I think if the type of people who call things woo-woo, they'd probably just describe me as woo-woo, because it's just the way I live my life, really. I love meditation, I love mindfulness, I have like a very deep connection with nature in a way, especially like the moon, like we spoke about. Like, this is probably what people would find the weirdest. I talk to the moon.
Yeah.
And
howl at it.
Not yet. I might try that one. But not like, I was going to say not in a weird way, but I don't know how you can say it without it sounding weird. But sometimes when I'm walking home, I've got my earphones in, I just find myself looking at the moon, and I'm just like, oh, hello. And I'll just say, you look very pretty tonight, and things like that.
Why not?
I like crystals, which a lot of people are very weird about. They don't really know how to feel about it. But I don't necessarily actively work with my crystals. It's not like in a Wiccan way, for example, where they do like spells and all this type of thing, which I am very interested in. It's just not a practice that I do. I do feel like they store and transmit energy, and I like how I feel around them. They almost have a presence to them, I find. And I just like how I feel around him, and whether it's placebo or not,
Yeah.
if it makes me feel better, then I don't see an issue with it, and I just think they look beautiful as well.
Yeah, and apparently there is science behind it. Claire, one of the ladies we're going to get in the podcast in January, who did one of the moon events, she does say there's science behind it in terms of the forces within the ground. If you think about a lot of the precious metals that come from the ground as well, they all have certain properties.
Yeah.
And even some are used in electric cars and things like that. So why wouldn't anything else have certain properties? I recently, not on purpose, but did this sort of a Reiki session turned into a little bit of a past life regression. Now, I'm not sure how I feel on this, or if my brain was just making up stories, but it turned out in this past life I was a witch that was ostracised from society and made to feel very shameful. Now, I don't know if I totally believe in it, but there you go.
Amazing.
I know, it's weird, and it was meant to explain, I can't remember it, like some sort of emotion at the time, but it's interesting. That's all I take from it. I'm not saying, yes, I certainly was a witch, and I have those skills now, but some people would disagree. But it's just interesting. I'm just like, oh, well, it's a possibility.
Well, we have spoken before about like old souls and all that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So feeling like our energy has been around a long time and maybe might have been in a human form before. Not saying our whole sentient being has been here before, but maybe if some of our energy has been in a sentient being before and then part of that has been passed on to us further down the line, then who's to say that energy can't have some type of memory in the sense of familiarity of being here again?
Totally. And we were just talking before about, rocks and stones, they still have energy.
Yeah.
And there's been some sort of research, like I can't remember if it's in the nucleus or the mitochondria in cells that can retain memory.
Yeah.
I suppose if there's enough of that. And actually, again, this is the stuff I read. I've read stories where there's been heart transplants before, and the person who's received the heart, so there was this case study where it was an old biker who unfortunately died, but passed on his heart to a young lady. All of a sudden she started developing, and who knows the reasons why, all of a sudden she started developing a liking for motorcycling and also strong real ale, like the old varieties, and they were just like, where's this come from? And then they talked to the family. They kept in touch with the person who donated the heart, his family, and they were like, well, he really enjoyed this sort of thing.
Wow. So she didn't even know any of that?
No,
until they got in touch with the family.
Apparently not. And apparently it can happen quite a lot. So I don't know how that's explained.
That's so strange, but so interesting.
But then again, a lady I know says that your heart contains so much more energy, electromagnetic energy, than your brain. So that's interesting. And again, it's something that we don't often talk about. You make decisions with your head, not with your heart. You're told not to. But actually, if your heart holds so much more power, it's just interesting.
That just makes me think, though, like how we always talk about love comes from the heart and all these bigger emotions come from the heart. Someone further down the line must have known all of this before our science has even had a chance to catch up, because how could we have already known this?
Yeah.
It's only just now that our science is able to start to prove some of this stuff.
Yes, and the same, almost like think with your gut, let your gut lead you. Before we discovered the power of the microbiome and how that gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
But then also, I think the gut's very topical at the minute. People are talking about the power of that, but not so much the heart anymore. But I think it'll all come back maybe when the whole electromagnetic fields, and again, we can't necessarily feel that with our five senses. But, someone can walk in the room and you pick up a good aura from them. Where does that come from?
Yeah. Well, I actually did this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of the same as how you find out your star sign and all that type of stuff. So if you're into astrology, you might be into this, but you can actually kind of do like these quizzes and things that show you what your electromagnetic field would look like.
Interesting.
And it shows you the directions with which your energy comes from and which ones of your energy centres are activated, which is where you live your life from the most, and how that influences the way you make decisions. If you're more of an intellectual, if you're more of an emotional, if you're like a split of the two. There's loads of like interesting stuff, so I did it. And mine was like spot on, really.
Yeah.
But I just found it so interesting. Like if it is real, then that's the type of stuff that I love. I find it fascinating.
Definitely. I think in the future, maybe I think there's a big space for linking, PR and promoting, and essentially it's relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're judging relationships so much on cold, hard, like extrinsic facts. But imagine if we incorporated like these electromagnetic, I can't even say, but you know what I mean, into like the campaigns and the strategies. That could be so powerful.
Definitely.
But again, it's very much seen as business is in its own box, and you wouldn't mess spirituality because you're all a little bit woo-woo again to use that. But you know, maybe in the future there's scope for that. Nobody copy the idea. Trademark, yes. So do you have any regrets?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that's a very big question.
I know, I just, again, just casually drop that in.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Like I said at the start of the episode, I think for me the biggest thing in my life are the connections I have with people. So the only things I ever regret are to do with the people I have or have had in my life, and maybe if they're not in my life anymore, the way that things ended, all that type of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I'm just such a deep feeler. I say this to like everyone who knows me, and everyone who knows me already knows this, but whatever emotion I feel it's like the nth degree. I can never just be that emotion. If I'm happy, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah.
If I'm sad, I'm depressed.
Yes.
If I'm a bit nervous, no, I'm extremely anxious. There's no grey with me. So when I have people in my life, I give them big emotions, and I'm not always used to the fact that I can't always get big emotions back.
Yes, yeah.
And then it kind of feels like an unfair transaction almost, because it is a transaction of energy. And I've described it like this before in like a metaphor. Everyone has their own cup. So for me, I almost have like this big vase or jug, and this like is full of water, which represent my emotions, and it's huge. And someone else might just have like a little teacup. So I pour all of mine into them, and it's overflowing for them, and they don't have the capacity to hold all of that, and it's too much for them. And when they try and give their all to me, I realise, but that hasn't made any difference to the amount I have now. That's like so small in comparison. And it kind of took me a long time to realise that it's not always an equal transaction. You can only give as much as possible for you to give. And I think in the past I may have kind of almost kind of told people, I don't think this is fair. I don't think I'm getting the same amount of energy that I'm putting in. And it wasn't until I took a step back and realised that, but not everyone can. Not everyone feels the same way as you do. And not everyone experiences emotions in the same way. So I realised that it was unfair of me to kind of do that. And it kind of took a bit of soul searching, dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it, for me to kind of realise that and become more self-aware that that's something that I do. And just because it may not seem as much to me, mine might seem too much to them.
Yeah, it could be their everything.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's something I only really recently realised, and my word for kind of figuring out was almost like a betrayal of like emotion. Like you're saying, you're pouring out your heart and soul here, and that's all you've got for me. But that cup analogy, that's perfect. Wow, you're so wise, Shannon. You're definitely an old soul. For sure. What are you grateful for in your life?
Oh, I'm grateful for lots of things. Luckily, I've been. It's something that's actually really helped me throughout my depression. Is I'm very much someone who catastrophises and thinks there's nothing good in my life.
Oh, yeah.
So looking for things to be grateful for is something that's really helped me. So
what's the word you taught us this morning?
Oh, glimmer.
Glimmer.
So for people who don't know, so everyone knows what a trigger is. It's something that kind of causes a bad reaction in you. It's something that takes you back to a bad time in your life, or it's something that causes a negative response from you. So I recently heard of this thing through social media called a glimmer, which is the opposite. So it's something that you see or experience that sparks joy in you. So it could be something as simple as going for a walk and the sun's coming beautifully through the leaves and it's just leaving pretty patterns on the floor. Or you go outside and you see that there's a little puppy, you get to stroke it, just anything that brings you joy, and starting to focus on those things instead. So yeah, that kind of was where my gratitude practice started. So things like obviously my family, specifically my sister, my two best friends who are a couple. They could not have done more for me throughout this time. They took me in, they welcomed me into the home. They kind of, in a weird way, became like parental figures almost. Just like very much nurturing me, taking care of me, making sure that I don't feel alone. My dog, I love that, you know what we're like,
Yeah.
with our dogs. And just grateful that I'm at a point where I can start to see the good in things again, not just the bad.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased to hear that. And what do you feel like, because sometimes hard times are sent for us as lessons. Like, have you learned any lessons from any of this?
I think, I don't know where to begin because I've learned so many, to be honest. I think, like we just said, I've learned that emotional transactions aren't always exact. I've learned that. I think the main thing I've learned is that things do get better, which is something that people always say. But like I said earlier, I'm very much someone who catastrophizes. When I'm in one emotion, I can't see any others. I'm just in that. So when I've been in depressive episodes before, I'm genuinely at a point where I'm like, I physically cannot see a point in anything anymore. I have my family around me. I still have my friends. I still have my sister. I can't see that as a good thing. My circle is small, and I don't mind that. I think it's nice because I get to have deeper connections with those people. But I'm just, in those moments, I'm like, it's not an intimate small circle. I'm lonely. I'm by myself, and it kind of took me a long time to learn that things do get better, and it's only when you're out of that mindset that you begin to see that. And I know that's like not much help because when you're in those moments, that's all you can see is the bad stuff. But it will naturally, gradually pass. And whenever I slip back into that, that's something I try and remind myself now is, yes, you might have had a bad day today, but you've had bad days before and you've woken up the next day and it's been okay again. And it's just reminding yourself that as often as possible, just so you know that you don't always have to worry about the future because it'll all work out eventually. It just might not be as quick as you want it to.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Shannon, they've all been beautiful answers. Thank you so much for pouring your little heart out to me.
It's okay, thank you.
We now have the fun bit. Hopefully you'll find this bit a little bit more fun than some of the deep questions, but it's time for the regular questions. So you probably know how this goes. I
don't actually.
Oh, no? What, you mean you haven't listened to the podcast?
Yes.
Oh, Shannon. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how would you rate yourself at the following 10 things?
Okay.
So number 1, how good looking are you?
Oh.
And it's how you think, not how you think other people think.
I would probably say like a 7, but I don't just mean physical. I like to think that I carry a nice energy about myself, and I like to think that comes across to people. So I'd give myself a 7.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think in the future, maybe for next year, because I don't want to change it mid-year, mid-season, maybe you should ask about how attractive, because it's different, isn't it? Yeah. How funny are you?
Oh. Depends on how well you know me, actually. If I don't know you, I'm very bland. But the more I get to know you, I kind of show you that I'm just a little bit weird. And that's when my kind of funny side comes out. So I'd say maybe like an 8.
Awesome. How good at cooking are you?
Oh, I'm a pretty good cook, you know. Yeah, I'd give myself a 9.
What's your signature dish?
Anything pasta.
Right.
Anything pasta is my absolute favourite. Homemade pasta, homemade sauce, always.
Awesome. We'll have to have a pasta night or something. How good at singing are you? No.
No. It's the one quality I wish I had, but I don't. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I'd say like a 2.
Okay.
Really bad.
Fair enough. What's your tolerance to alcohol like?
Depends what I'm drinking.
Oh, interesting.
I'm a little bit backwards. So wine,
okay,
just in general. Wine, I can drink all night and be mostly fine. But cider, which is obviously a lot less percent, and a lot more, people would think it'd take a lot more to get you drunk. I can have like a 1 pint of cider and be absolutely trolleyed. It's ridiculous. But I think in general, I'd say maybe like a 7. Just as like an average, but yeah, I find it crazy.
It's interesting because I was the worst with wine.
Yeah.
I rarely drink wine now because I've also discovered a sulfite allergy. And then when I switched to drinking more spirits, I wouldn't get as drunk as easily. So that's been a blessing. Parenting skills. So obviously you have no children at the moment, so we ask about your fur baby.
Oh, she's very well looked after. She goes for lots of walks. She's well fed. But I think I'd probably use my sister as a better
Oh yeah, that's
thingy
lovely.
because as a better comparison, just because we have like a decent sized age gap. It's not huge. It's just 7 years. But especially as like when I entered my teenage years, I automatically felt more of like a maternal instinct over her rather than like a sibling instinct. So we still act like siblings, but I feel like I treat her almost more as a daughter sometimes in a weird way. But yeah, I'd like to think I'm an 8.
Awesome. Friend skills.
Oh, 10. It's the thing I pride myself on most is, like I say, connections with people and just making sure the people in my life know that I love them and care for them and I'm there for them.
Oh, lovely. How intelligent are you?
I don't know. I love to learn, so I'm modest enough to know that no one can ever be a 10 because there's always something else to learn. I think in the reality of things, I'm probably like a 4 or 5 because there's so much I could learn about so many different things. But general knowledge, I'd like to think maybe like a 7. But again, I don't think I'll ever stop learning. I never want to.
No, that's a really good answer. And how kind are you?
I'd like to think 10, but you know, we all have our moments where we're not always as kind as we'd like to be, even if it's towards ourselves. So yeah, I'll probably go with a 9.
Okay, and final question, how good at sex are you?
Oh.
Quite personal.
Well, it depends what you're into.
Yeah, that's a very good question. A very good answer, sorry.
Well, I'm a bit of a pillow princess.
Okay.
I just like to kind of lay there and let you do the deed for me.
Well,
so if that's what you're into, then 10 out of 10. But if you expected me to get on top and do all of the work, then a 4. It's very few and far between.
I love that answer. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Shannon. You've been fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, it's Ryan from Harvey and Hugo and I am the videographer here. So, are you looking for a new way to stand out in today's crowded digital landscape? Well, look no further than podcasting. Here at Harvey and Hugo, we specialise in creating and producing high quality podcasts that engage and inspire audiences. And with our comprehensive production services, we'll take care of all the technical details, from the recording and the editing to the distribution and the promotion. With millions of listeners tuning in every day, it's the perfect time to start connecting with them on a deeper level. Let Harvey and Hugo help you unlock the power of podcasting and take your message to the next level.